Good afternoon. My name is Greg Krasovsky. I'm an American attorney and a former police officer. Today I wanted to talk to you about internet dating, internet marriages, and the legal services that we provide to people who may have issues or who need legal advice. As we all know today, lots of people meet not through older traditional means, but also online, through various dating apps, dating services, websites. This includes both domestic dating and even international dating. Well, there are lots of pros and there are lots of cons. People also meet through social media, as we know as well. Here's what I want you to think about. Things can go wrong if you start dating on the internet or meeting someone online. And you need to be concerned to make sure things don't go wrong. Now, what can go wrong? Well, first of all, let's look at internet dating sites and agencies. Obviously, you're a consumer when you subscribe to these services, and as a consumer, you have your rights. And various consumer protection laws come into play, as well as laws that protect your personal information, your personal data. So the last thing you want is to provide your personal data to some web app or service or agency and then have that data leaked or obtained by hackers because the companies in question did not have all the appropriate safeguards for your data. Encryption, firewalls, basically maintaining proper internet security. If that has happened to you, if you believe that your personal information that you had provided in good faith to who you thought was a reputable and responsible company or service, if you feel that personal data was compromised, contact us and we'll see what we can do to protect your rights, to try to mitigate any further damage, if necessary, work with local law enforcement, international foreign law enforcement, prosecutors, and everyone else. And also in the event you now become a victim of identity fraud or identity theft, and you have third parties abusing your information and obtaining services in your name, goods, loans, things like that, then contact us. We'll try to help you out as well. Aside from potential data leaks, right, or data thefts, what can also go wrong? Because we have lots of dating apps and services. You have internet dating and marriage scams, and all sorts of related things. It's not just on the internet. Doesn't really matter how you meet someone. One thing you expect and you want to be protected from are misrepresentations. You meet someone, they tell you their name is Joe. Well, let's hope that their name is Joe. They give you a particular last name, a particular age, where they've lived, who their relatives are, their educational background. Imagine if you meet someone who starts lying to you about all these things, what their real name is, what their age is, where they're from, where they've lived, because they may want to either hide certain information from you that they may find embarrassing or compromising, or true but damaging to them. Imagine if you meet someone and they lie to you about the absence of a criminal record, when in fact they have a substantial criminal record, as we say in law enforcement. Recidivism, right? They may be repeat offenders. They may have been arrested or, even worse, convicted of not just summary offenses or misdemeanors, but felonies. Crimes that involve, let's say, moral turpitude. Right? This is a concept in U.S. immigration law. We'll get to that a little bit later when it comes to international data and people that you may have met abroad or online. Why should you be concerned? Well, because further down the road, you may become the victim of fraud. In other words, when someone makes misrepresentations to you of important or material facts, in order to get some sort of proprietary or financial advantage from it, that's fraud. If you entrust a person like that, money or property, right? In other words, there's some sort of a relationship where you've entrusted money or property to them and they become what's called a fiduciary, right? Someone who has an obligation to safeguard your money or your property. And instead of looking out for your interests as the person who entrusted these things to them, they start converting the money or the property for their own uses, for their own personal gains. That's called conversion. It's a concept in the law. But conversion by a fiduciary is called what probably all of you have heard, embezzlement. So you don't want to become the victim of an embezzlement by someone that you've gotten involved with in a relationship because you've met them online, through social media, or through a dating service or a dating app. And you believed their representations, but they actually made misrepresentations to you, either actively, in other words, actively lying to you, or misrepresentations could have been made even by omission. That's when someone specifically withholds certain information, key information from you. Well, you know, like when you testify in court and you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Right? There's a reason why you promise to do all those three things, because you may be truthful, but if you don't tell the whole truth, you may present a completely different picture. Right? Or you may be truthful, but you may also interject the truth with some lies or supplement it with some lies. And you can create a completely false picture. That's why you expect a person that you're involved with to act with you the same way as you would expect someone who's testifying in court. You expect them to tell you the truth, the whole truth, no matter how ugly or embarrassing it may be to them. Especially when you've gotten involved in a serious or intimate relationship, where you're potentially considering engagement or marriage, or combining assets, setting up a business together, purchasing property together, whether it's a car, or real estate, or even expensive appliance, computer, or other expensive consumer products in the thousands of dollars. You don't want to become a victim of fraud, of misrepresentation, either by omission or actively. So let's go down further. What can happen? People have become victims of misrepresentations, as we mentioned already, names, age, even gender and sexual orientation. You go, what the heck does that have to do with it? Well, you know, you've gotten involved in a relationship, especially a long-distance one online, with someone who you expect to be a man or a woman, but they turn out to be something else. That's bad news. You know, that's clearly fraud. Why are they doing it to you? Maybe they're getting some twisted, perverted joy out of it, or they may be planning to hit you up for money. And we'll get to that a little bit later. People also lie about their nationality, ethnicity, race, yes, even race, for all sorts of nefarious reasons. Sometimes for innocent reasons, because they may be embarrassed of their true nationality and race or religion, but that's a different issue. Hopefully you get to the point of relation where people are honest with each other. Immigration status, boy, that's a big one, right? You meet someone and it turns out that they're an illegal alien. Instead of being a U.S. citizen or someone who's a lawful permanent resident, or what we call a green card holder, turns out that they may have entered the country illegally. They've illegally crossed the border, whether by sea, land, or even air. Or they may have overstayed their visa. They may have entered the country legally on a valid visa. But then when their stay expired, they stayed. Now they're out of immigration status. They're as illegal aliens. And that can have serious consequences for you as the person who's dating them, living with them, supporting them, even potentially engaged or married, or having children. So that's a serious issue. We'll deal with that a little bit later. People misrepresent where they've lived, where they've worked, their employment status, whether they're employed or actually unemployed, whether they've been fired or laid off. Because there may be some reasons why a person was fired that you need to know about. If they were fired from workplace theft, or if they were fired for harassing fellow employees or threatening their employees or their superiors, their supervisors, you may want to know about that, because that can have consequences for you. People may lie about their work history. Oh, before I was this and before I was that, and turns out, they haven't done anything before. They just may have had just a menial job that they lost because of tardiness. They were late to work, or they didn't show up, or abused sick leave, or whatever, or just poor job performance. Anything can happen. People lie about professions. Someone say, hey, I'm a doctor. And you're like, wow, I really want to date a doctor. Or I'm a nurse, or, I'm a lawyer or an accountant. Turns out they're not. That's bad news, because eventually, that can have serious consequences for you. Not just psychological and emotional ones, but even financial consequences. And legal ramifications, including legal liability, especially if you become partners with them. As you know, partners share liability. And a partnership can be formed, or if you announce yourselves to be partners to a third party, and that party relies on you being partners, he may hold you, jointly and severally liable for certain things. That's serious. People lie about educational credentials. Oh, I have a PhD or a bachelor's or a master's, and they may not. They may be just a high school dropout. They may even lie to you about whether having a high school diploma or a GED. They may not. Another very serious issue when people lie about their health. What if someone has a contagious or communicable disease, as we call it? Yeah, you may want to know about that before you end up picking it up. And then now you have health issues, and your health may suffer irreparable harm, especially by serious diseases that may go undiagnosed for a while, like HIV, hepatitis. Certain types of hepatitis take a long time to treat and may do irreparable damage to your liver. Other things, things like HPV. Certain diseases can, in fact, in the future provoke malignant growth or cancer. That's potentially life-threatening and deadly. So you may want to know about that. What if someone has, I'm not talking about minor stuff that people have picked up in relationships. What if someone has something really serious like tuberculosis, and you contract tuberculosis because they didn't treat it fully? And you'll be surprised. I'm not talking about, people say, well, I'm not dating any bums, drug addicts or alcoholics on Skid Row. You may not know what a person's true background is. Or people who may come from a decent background, have decent work, credentials, and everything else, may have just picked up a disease like this, by chance, like getting a bad lottery ticket. People may lie about whether they've had a history of addiction, whether it's alcohol, drug addiction, gambling, even sex addictions. You may want to know about that. People lie about financial conditions, whether they're bankrupt or severely in debt or solvent, whether they have serious liens on them from creditors, tax liens, wage garnishments, all sorts of things. People will lie about marital status. You think you're dating a single woman or a single guy. Turns out they're still married. They're cheating on their spouse. Or they may tell you that divorce was finalized, and it's far from it. They may lie to you about whether they have children or not, including whether the children were conceived and born in wedlock or out of wedlock. You need to know all these things, because you may meet someone who has children and you assume that this was from the previous marriage that they had. It turns out that in addition to those, the person may have had children from another mistress or an aside. And that will have consequences. Not just emotional ones, but also financial ones as well. Sometimes what's very important is for people to tell you the truth, whether they're involved in serious civil lawsuits or under criminal investigation. They may be under indictment or expecting an indictment, or they may be out on bail waiting for trial. Scary things. So just because someone does have one of those, ankle bracelets, ankle monitors, doesn't mean that, they may not be out on bail in awaiting trial. People may hide from you that they were or are members in various organizations like gangs or some extremist organizations that may have offensive views and that may consistently violate constitutional, civil, or property rights of other people, like criminal gangs. So, what goes wrong when you get all these misrepresentations? Well, you end up getting victimized. So first of all, you're victimized into entering a relationship because you've been duped, right? Or maybe you were just too naive or too polite to ask certain questions. No one says, hey, before our first date, can you please fill out this questionnaire? No one does that. This isn't like applying for a visa to some country where you have to check off everything. But please be prudent. Use certain caution and diligence. But if you have been victimized by someone like that, the first injury that you suffer is you've been duped or conned into entering into an intimate relationship. You've literally opened yourself up to physical intimacy, emotional intimacy with someone, and they've lied to you. And that's a horrible deception that can do some serious long-term or even short-term psychological damage. Then this type of relationship can then lead on to abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse. Imagine if you become dependent on someone emotionally, you fall in love with someone, and then you start finding out the truth about all these ugly things. But now you're already committed, it's hard to leave. Imagine if you're pregnant, or if you have children with someone, or the other person is pregnant. What are you going to do? Walk away from a child, or from a pregnant girlfriend? You're not going to do that. Or from a boyfriend when you're pregnant yourself? What happens if you're already engaged? You may have introduced this person to your family, to your friends, to your colleagues. Imagine you've had an engagement party, you've planned a wedding, you've already made some financial commitments. And often that happens. That starts with not just, paying for dates and dinner, giving people expensive gifts. Not talking about just engagement, right? But other expensive gifts. You can spend $500 or $1,000 on a cell phone these days, not to mention an expensive tablet like an iPad or an expensive notebook computer. That's where it starts. Get an expensive bicycle or something else, electric scooter. You may take someone on an expensive vacation abroad. It'll cost you thousands of dollars, and you find out you would have never done it had you known the truth about the person. You wouldn't have been in a relationship with them in the first place. You'd have had to think long and hard whether it would be worth it. So, aside from the psychological abuse, and there are worse situations. On the far end of the spectrum, someone could victimize you so much. What if this person is actually a pimp who engages in human trafficking or in exploitation? You end up being in sexual bondage or slavery, pretty much, especially abroad. That's scary. You can be financially victimized if you've, not just for gifts, but what if the person that you met needed money? And they'll say, oh, I have unexpected, health expenses, or their relatives need money, or their siblings need money. What if you've decided to repay some loans for them, or agreed to be a co-signer on something, some obligation, right, or a guarantor? You may have transferred property to them, or other assets. You may have collateralized your assets for them, or jointly purchased things that are expensive, including on credit, whether it's cars, mortgages, or sorts of stuff. What if you end up being a victim, not just identity theft that I mentioned before, but hey, you've been dating for a while, and you let someone use your credit card. Well, they have access to your credit card. They have access to your wallet when you're away in another room when you're sleeping. And they write everything down. And next thing you know, You're getting unauthorized charges from your credit card. Or when you confront them about it and they give you the song and the dance of why they had to do it. But don't worry about it, I'll pay you back. So anything like this has happened to you, or you're afraid it's happening to you, give us a call. Because what we can do for you is not just protect your rights in court, but we can also help you with the due diligence. The due diligence that we do ourselves through licensed private investigators, if necessary through law enforcement, and obviously access to various databases that not just major banks use, and database of credit reporting agencies, and all sorts of stuff. So we can try to get you information on the person and their family. Speaking of family, what if you start dating someone and they don't disclose to you? Obviously, as people, we're not responsible for what our former spouses do, for what our siblings do, for what our children do, or even our parents. But some things should be disclosed to people you're in serious relationships with. You start dating a guy, and he fails to disclose to you that, he only has 2 brothers, those are his only siblings, and both brothers are doing serious sentences, serious time for felonies, violent felonies, or serious drug felonies, or other horrific crimes. Would you want to know about that? Yeah, you may want to know about that. Because that may give you some insight into the family dynamics, into the family relationship. What if the person's parents had extensive criminal records, substance abuse in the family, all sorts of other things, may have abused the person? You may want to know about that because that person may require therapy, help, guidance. You have to be more cautious to make sure that they were able to break away from that past, get out of that cycle of crime or substance abuse. Or their best friends. A person may have some good best friends and it turns out that they're all criminals. You may want to know about that. Or they've been engaged in things that may have a long-term impact, like prostitution. Whether as prostitutes or as pimps or other facilitators. It's bad news. Or other crimes. People can be involved in white-collar crimes, international crimes, contraband, you name it. So that gets real serious when you're involved in international dating. Because people meet during trips, people meet online, through apps, through social media, through dating services. You've seen the ads for, hey, we'll find you a foreign spouse or a foreign bride or a foreign fiance. If you're going down that route, I strongly suggest you contact my law office and we'll explain to you all the pros and the cons and everything that can go wrong. Not just all the misrepresentations, but all sorts of ways you'll be milked for money. In bad faith by the person you've been involved with, because their intention may be never to really date you or marry you, but just simply to suck money out of you. Oh, can you send me some money so I can get a visa? Or can you send me some money so I can, I have emergency expenses, medical treatment? Or they won't let me out of the country unless I repay this debt. Or, oh, can you send me money for plane tickets? I'll definitely meet you somewhere. And you'll be amazed at how quickly someone can this vacuum cleaner turns on. Someone can lose thousands of dollars because the person on the other end is not interested in a genuine relationship. They're interested in milking you for money. Or heaven forbid you provide them your credit card information or other things or other personal data that they may then pass on to their network of associates, criminal associates. Maybe involved in an international conspiracy that engages in credit card theft ring, identity theft rings. People may simply be in a relationship with you for immigration benefits. And I told you that we would discuss this. I told you before we'd discuss it. when I see people who've met online or have met people who are residents or citizens of other countries, and they have legitimate feelings for each other, I have nothing but respect and just for that couple, and I wish them the best of luck. Hopefully they'll get married, they'll form a family, they'll have children, and live happily ever after. But we do have to recognize that we have significant divorce rates. 50% of marriages end in divorce. That's in the U.S. In other countries, divorce rates, places like Russia, Ukraine, and other former Soviet countries, former Soviet republics, can even be higher. Plus, you have very poor countries, aside from Eastern Europe, where people will do anything to get out of them. And if you're a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, they may look at you as the ticket out of their situation. Not because they love you, or they really want to form a family with you long term, but because they want to get out. And it's really tragic when people contact my law office who have obtained visas for the people they've met abroad, have married them. I'm talking about even potentially fiancé visas, or have married them abroad, brought them to the U.S., have spent significant amounts of money, and then they find out that the person was just the equivalent, I guess, of an international gold digger. You don't have to be extremely wealthy to be the victim of a gold digger. It's all relative. You may be only making $30,000 in the U.S. To someone who lives in a country worth $3,000 a year is a great deal of money. It's you're almost like a millionaire. So if you feel that you're being victimized this way, contact us and we'll work with local law enforcement. If necessary, we'll work with the network of local lawyers that my law office has in almost every country works with. And we'll try to protect your rights. We'll also try to see if we can get you some money back and prevent any further damage. People can also be victimized not just by the people that they've met, but by the services and the apps themselves, where the service doesn't really care whether you're going to be in a relationship, or the service may actually be involved in the fraud. We've had dating services that have known that the profiles they're putting up in their services are fake profiles. Pictures are fake. Pictures are of some actress or model. You think you're going to be, you're corresponding to someone who's beautiful, and it turns out that's not even their real photo. Or they know that they've already received complaints like this before, but they don't care because their job is to get the subscription fees from you and also various usage fees. For instance, translation services, or if you email the person, you have to pay a certain amount of money per email. Or the trips abroad, where people will travel abroad and say, hey, you'll go abroad with us, give us like $5,000, and we'll do speed dating for you with so many women. And then you get there and it's not what you thought. It's not a 5-star hotel, it's a 2-star hotel. Speed dating, you may not know it, but the 10 women that you've been introduced to, these are the same 10 women everyone else has been introduced to for the last 2 or 3 years. They have no intention of, becoming your fiancé or marrying you. Same thing can happen to women too, where you'll be involved in a relationship with a man abroad who doesn't really love you. His goal is to milk you for money, gifts, and property, and potentially for immigration status. And that's the worst of it. So if you think you're in a situation like that, contact us. We'll try to protect you. We'll try to get you compensation. Hopefully we'll try to recover for you what you've lost, or at least get you justice by making sure that the perpetrators are prosecuted or sued with effective collection efforts. Things can go wrong. Obviously, this is a very small percentage of cases where people meet internationally or meet online or meet domestically, but you have to be cautious. And if you've happened to have gotten this bad lottery ticket and you find yourself in this situation, please call us. We'll try to protect you. Thank you. If you just want to give us a call to get some advice, remember, attorney-client privilege will extend to that, even if you don't become our client. So whatever you tell us will be kept in strict confidence. It's not going to be disclosed to third parties. And even that first short, brief, free consultation may help you out. Thank you. Look forward to hearing from you.